Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. My name is Callum Hayes, and if you had asked me a year ago what stability looked like, I would have said my wife, Marielle. She had this quiet, soft-spoken way of carrying herself, like someone who would rather fold the noise of the world into something manageable than ever contribute to it. For years, that steadiness felt like home. But sometimes the calmest waters hide the deepest cracks, and I didn't see them until the night everything shifted. It started slowly, almost too quietly for a man like me to catch. Late-night team events, back-to-back client dinners, weekend strategy retreats. Her company had always run her hard, but I'd never seen her disappear into work the way she did those last few months. I'd wake to an empty half of the bed, check my phone, and see a text that said, "Running late. Don't wait up." I didn't want to be the suspicious husband, the clingy husband, the controlling husband she casually joked about in front of friends. So I swallowed the unease and played the supportive partner. It's embarrassing how long I tried to convince myself that dedication and distance weren't the same thing. Then came the night she snapped. It was a Thursday. I'd cooked dinner, nothing special, just lemon chicken and roasted vegetables, but enough that the house smelled like effort. She walked in past 9, shoulders slumped, hair pulled back in one of those messy knots she only made when she'd stopped caring how she looked. She dropped her bag, stood in the doorway, and stared at the table without sitting down. "I'm not doing this," she said. "No hello. No thank you. No, I'm home." I tried a smile. "Rough day." She shook her head, more frustrated than tired. "Callum, I'm done. I'm done being a wife. Deal with it." Just like that. No tremor in her voice, no hesitation. As if she had rehearsed it. I stood there stunned. "What does that even mean?" "It means," she said, untying her hair with a sharp flick, "I'm tired of being this version of myself, this domestic, predictable caretaker. I don't want this life anymore, and I'm not going to keep pretending I do." The chair behind me felt unsteady, or maybe that was just me. I'd heard of marriages dying quietly, but I never expected mine to be buried with a single sentence. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Marielle, if you're unhappy, talk to me. We can fix things." Her laugh was thin, hollow. "You don't fix what's already over." And there it was, the line that split my life cleanly in two. Over the next days, the distance between us stopped being metaphorical. She slept in the guest room. She came home later and later. She spoke to me like a coworker she barely tolerated. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just a witness to her unraveling. I thought it couldn't get more painful than that. I was wrong. 2 weeks after her announcement, she sent me a text, because apparently that's the language we spoke now, telling me her father wanted to meet to discuss logistics. Logistics, not feelings, not clarity. Logistics. Her father, Edric Sorensen, wasn't the warm kind of father-in-law. He was the type who believed handshakes were unnecessary because contracts did the job better. When Marielle and I got married, he insisted on a prenup. I signed it because I loved her, because I trusted her, because I thought families protected each other, not positioned themselves for future battles. But sitting across from him that evening at their long glass dining table, I realized how naive that trust had been. Edric didn't waste time. "Marielle has decided to move forward independently," he said, as if he were announcing a departmental restructuring. "Given the prenup you signed, the process should be simple." I stared at him, then at Marielle, who wouldn't meet my eyes. She looked like someone who had already stepped out of her old life and into something shinier, colder, and utterly unfamiliar. "So that's it?" I asked quietly. "You're done, and I'm supposed to just deal with it?" Her jaw tightened. "Yes, Callum, I am done." I wish I could say I got angry, shouted, demanded answers. But the truth is, something inside me stilled instead. A strange, steady clarity settled in. The kind a person gets when they finally understand the storm that's been forming for months. If she wanted freedom, she could have it. But she wouldn't walk away as cleanly as she thought. Not emotionally, not morally, not truthfully, because I was done too. Just not in the way she expected. The strange thing about heartbreak is how quiet it becomes once the shock fades. The house didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like a museum of a marriage, frozen in the moments before everything went wrong. Her mug on the counter, my jacket on the chair, the framed photo from our trip to Savannah, where she held my arm so tightly you'd think she was afraid I'd disappear. It all felt like evidence now, not memories. A week after the meeting with her father, Marielle and I finally sat down to talk. Or rather, I talked, and she drifted through the room like someone waiting for a train. "I just want to understand," I said. "When did everything change for you?" She didn't sit. She paced slowly, arms crossed, eyes vague. "It didn't change, Callum. It just became clear. I've been suffocating for years. The routine, the normality, the expectations. I don't want to play a role anymore." "Being my wife was a role?" "Yes," she said without flinching. "A role I don't want." I thought about the years we'd shared, birthdays, rainy Sundays, the way she'd curl up on my chest after long days at work. All roles, apparently. All performances. "But I didn't ask you to be anyone but yourself," I said quietly. "That's the problem. I don't know who that is anymore." There it was. A truth so heavy it felt almost like compassion. Almost. But compassion doesn't excuse cruelty. And she had been cruel in all the small, silent ways people forget to account for. There was a second layer to all this. A shadow I hadn't wanted to look at but could no longer ignore. The late-night events. The sudden obsession with team unity. The new coworker she'd mentioned offhand once, Yora, with his creative energy and refreshing perspective. A name that sounded like it belonged in a fantasy novel more than an office building. I'd asked her about him twice. Both times she brushed it off, almost offended I'd even considered the possibility. But people don't snap out of nowhere. They drift first. They detach. They find someone or something that makes the life they built feel too small. Still, I didn't accuse her. I didn't need to. The truth always has a way of revealing itself when someone is desperate to rewrite their own narrative. The next morning, I woke before dawn. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that lets you hear your own thoughts clearly. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and opened the drawer where we kept important papers. I took out the prenup, thick, cold, clinical. The document that had once felt like a formality but now felt like a countdown. I read through every line, every clause, every protective measure that shielded her, not us. And I didn't feel angry. I felt resolved. If Marielle wanted to be done, then I'd give her exactly what she asked for, without bitterness, without drama, without the emotional labor she had long abandoned. But I'd also give myself something I hadn't had in months. Dignity. That afternoon, I told her, "I'll sign whatever needs signing. I won't fight you, but I'm not staying in this house while you decide who you want to be. I'll give you space, actual space. I'll move out for a while." She blinked, surprised. Maybe she expected me to beg, to argue, to cling to the remnants of what we once had. But desperation had left my body the moment she looked at me like I was a responsibility instead of a partner. "When?" she asked. "Tonight." A flicker of something, relief, guilt, or fear, crossed her face. I didn't analyze it. I didn't want to anymore. I packed light. Clothes, essentials, the books I still enjoyed, and one framed photo. My mother's, not ours. I left everything else. What was the point of carrying a life someone else had already vacated? On my way out, Marielle stood in the hallway, arms wrapped around herself. She looked smaller than she had in months. "Callum," she said softly, "I didn't want to hurt you." I nodded. "But you did." She closed her eyes. "And I added, you could have talked to me before it got to this. You could have tried." She opened her eyes, but there was no answer in them. Just a long, exhausted silence. I stepped outside, the cold evening air hitting me like a reset button. Walking to my car felt like stepping out of an old skin, tight, worn, suffocating. I didn't look back. People think endings come with slamming doors or shouted words, but sometimes they come with quiet acceptance. Two people realizing they aren't holding the same rope anymore. Marielle wanted freedom. Fine. She could have it. But I wanted something too. My peace, my clarity, and my life back. By the time I reached the end of the street, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. A strange, tentative hope. Sometimes the softest goodbye is the one that saves you.